Tonight, a humble hero with a mean hip and shoulder. Why this Adelaide father didn't think twice about taking down a Rundle Mall thug.
An Adelaide lawyer jailed for killing a much-loved doctor in a drunken hit-run crash. See her mother's bizarre reaction.
The most dire prediction yet as Cyclone Alfred edges closer. 4 million Australians warned it's coming and could be deadly. Comprehensive coverage of this major emergency.
Family anger as thieves target an Adelaide childcare centre, and you won't believe what they came for.
Donald Trump declares America is back and Russia is ready to end the war with Ukraine.
Plus a twist as the AFL works to revamp the season fixture.
Live from Adelaide, 7 News with Rosanna Mangiarelli and Will Goodings.
Good evening. A father of 2 has been identified as the humble hero who rushed to the aid of a mum and daughter violently attacked in Rundle Mall.
The former Holden worker says he didn't think twice before acting and just wants to know the victims are okay.
A humble hero.
But you don't aim to do it, it was just reaction. As soon as I heard it, I just jumped in.
Dad of 2, Sanga Chow, is the man in this vision, captured in his thongs, taking down a violent attacker in Rundle Mall with one fierce bump on Sunday.
I saw her running, so I ran towards her first, and then I saw the guy coming, and then by the time I knew, we were pretty close, so I just threw the elbow and jumped towards him, really.
The former Holden worker from Port Adelaide was sitting with his wife and children watching a busking show when he heard a woman screaming before beelining for the thug. The police arriving to finish the job as the mum and daughter, who were allegedly hit several times in the random attack, cowered on the ground.
Lucky there was a group of other guys willing to jump in, and we just laid on top of him. He did squirm around for a bit, but it was good that everyone else helped out.
To all of those people who've congratulated Sanger on his good work and offered to buy him a beer, he says thanks, but please put the money towards a charity.
A women's shelter, something like that would be good, yeah. If anything, I'm really more worried about the victim. I haven't heard anything from her. Hopefully she's well. And he admits that in the moment, he may have drawn inspiration.
He's got a man out wide instead.
From a Port Adelaide legend.
I'm a big Power fan, yeah. Good old Choppy Pickett. I was a big fan of his, so hopefully he likes that.
Hannah Ford, 7 News.
A drunk lawyer who killed a prominent Adelaide doctor in a horror hit run will remain behind bars for at least 5 years.
Lauren Wilgoose's mother confronted our cameraman outside court today, staring him down before being ushered away.
Emotions were already at fever pitch as Lauren Wilgoose took her final steps of freedom. Distress and anger spilling onto the road at the end of the hearing when her mother suddenly turned and confronted our news camera.
Sorry, that's enough.
Her distraught daughter had just been jailed for 8 years over the drunken hit-run death of top neuropsychologist Anthony Walsh.
I don't feel glad, I don't feel happy, I don't have any of those positive emotions. I just have an overwhelming feeling of sadness.
Wilgoose drank 1.5 litres of red wine at the Goodwood Hotel in June 2021, jumped in her car, struck Mr Walsh as he crossed the road from the nearby Good Gilbert wine bar, kept driving, and when she got home, kept drinking. The next morning she began calling law firms.
Got in a car when she should not have got in a car, and as a consequence I now don't have a husband. She has to spend time away from her child.
33-year-old Wilgoose has a 2-year-old son conceived soon after the tragedy. The judge rejected her assertion Mr Walsh was partly to blame for stepping out onto the road. The judge said Wilgoose was likely an alcoholic, but she was in complete control of her decision to drink and drive that night, making her behaviour morally reprehensible. Christine Walsh said she plans to return to the Good Gilbert wine bar tonight in honour of her husband, while making this desperate plea to drivers.
Don't drink and drive. It causes this, it causes a lot of grief and sadness, so don't do it.
Deanna Williams, 7 News.
Hundreds are expected to turn up to 3 temporary Hills water collection sites from tomorrow as the state grapples with drought conditions.
Amelia's at one of those sites tonight, and Amelia, a 4th site is imminent.
Well, that's right. One for residents down south. 7 News understands SA Water is still testing sites around Aldinga, with a 4th site set to be announced tomorrow. Now, that'll be on top of the 3 that are here in the hills and are set to open at 7 a.m, including here at SA Water's Woodside water tank behind us. Now, another you'll find opposite the Bracunga CFS. It'll give households access to the SA Water mains there, and a 3rd you'll find just outside of Strathalbyn at Sandergrove. These unprecedented emergency measures are in place, with many homes not connected to the mains network now without running water. Water transporters such as Paringa View Park say they've been working around the clock for months now to fulfil orders.
A lot of people are just leaving it too late to order water in a timely manner and are getting caught out. But there's also many places that in 3 generations have never seen their dams so empty or their bores so dry.
Now, the water will be available tomorrow at market pricing, 28 cents per litre or $28 per kilolitre. You can't pay with cash, only EFTPOS, with homeowners advised to bring their own containers to fill up. Rosanna.
All right, thank you, Amelia. 4 million Australians are racing to prepare for potentially deadly flooding, with Cyclone Alfred now expected to hit in a little over 24 hours. Authorities have given the most dire prediction yet of how severe and widespread the damage could be.
Tonight, there's a last-minute battle for sandbags and supplies. Flights in and out of the Gold Coast have been suspended. From tomorrow, schools are closed and public transport is halted. And the Bureau isn't ruling out the possibility of upgrading Alfred to a Category 3 system. Chris Reason begins our coverage.
Still a day away from landfall, but Cyclone Alfred is already making its presence felt. As the East Coast braces for a direct hit, whipping waves and surging tides bowled people like tenpins and picked up cars like beach toys. It's going to get far worse.
Take this seriously. This is a rare event.
Alfred is now on course for Brisbane's densely populated southern suburbs, 30,000 homes in the flood zone.
Make your evacuation plan now, and if you have the option to go and stay with family and friends, take that.
It sent a city into lockdown, with 4 million residents told today they could be without power for at least 3 days. Supermarket shelves are bare. Sandbagging stations are being cleaned out too. 250,000 more bags being distributed. They will need them. There were kilometres of queues this morning.
I haven't slept since 7 yesterday, so I've been here about 3 times.
The situation's so desperate for some, they were stealing sand from a local playground. Up and down the coast, homeowners are preparing, building barriers, taping windows.
The cyclone is an unusual event. We're talking about 1 in 50 years.
Alfred is forecast to make landfall in darkness 2 a.m. Friday. The Gold Coast first in line.
This looks like the most significant event in our city since 1954.
That cyclone killed at least 24. The population then 36,000. Now 750,000.
And the ADF is now engaged as of right now.
Alfred is 400 kilometres off the coast and closing. As a Cat 2, it's packing winds of 90 kilometres an hour with gusts up to 164. Along the coast, that's enough to see boats break from their moorings and waves to hit 8 metres, 15 metres offshore. Now inland, those winds will be enough to bring down power lines and trees, perhaps even rip roofs from some older homes. But then there's the rain. Alfred's expected to dump 200 to 400 mils daily in isolated areas, even up to 800 mils. The problem is, when that water builds, it can't get away, with warnings of life-threatening flash flooding over a 200-kilometre stretch of our east coast. And adding to the twin traumas of high winds and rain, Alfred is due to hit on one of the year's highest tides.
We are dealing with 3 natural disaster events in one.
The countdown is on. Chris Reason, 7 News.
And we have reporters standing by to bring you the very latest. Let's first go to Amanda Abate, who's on the Gold Coast tonight. Amanda, how are locals reacting to this unprecedented threat?
Rosanna, it's been a mix. We've certainly seen a lot of people spending the day really getting prepared. Huge lines of people at sandbag stations. Supermarkets have been stripped bare, but a lot of people also coming out to take it all in. These are incredible conditions, unlike anything many of us have seen here before. Waves up to 9 metres lashing the coastline. They're only going to get a lot bigger than that. We already know of 3 people who have been taken to hospital after being knocked over by these wild waves while simply trying to watch them from the shore. The streets are a lot quieter now, though. The city is virtually shutting down. Residents told to stay inside now. They should be prepared by now to weather this storm out in the safety of their homes. Will.
OK, thank you, Amanda. Let's head now to Casey Treloar at Adelaide Airport. And Casey, getting in and out of the cyclone zone is already posing a challenge.
It is, Will. Hundreds of South Australian travellers have already been affected, with 4 flights between Adelaide and the Gold Coast cancelled today. And I can tell you the Gold Coast airport has already been officially closed. Now, Qantas said its airlines, including Jetstar, would not operate any flights to and from the Gold Coast for at least 24 hours once the airport was closed. Airlines are warning people travelling to Brisbane, the Gold Coast, the Sunshine Coast and northern New South Wales over the next few days to keep an eye on their flight status. Now, at this stage, Adelaide flights to and from Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast are unaffected, but that is expected to change from tomorrow. Rosanna?
Thanks for the update, Casey. Let's bring in Chief Football Reporter now, Mitch Cleary. And Mitch, you have new information on the AFL's forced fixture shuffle.
Rosanna, we first had opening round. Now the AFL is considering closing round. The talk out of clubs today is the AFL is considering moving that Essendon Gold Coast game scheduled for this week that has now been postponed to be the final game of the home and away season after the current round 24. There is still a few hoops to jump through before that is confirmed, but if it does go ahead, it would make for a fitting finale to the season if either team is in finals contention. As for the Cats and the Lions game scheduled for this weekend that has also been postponed, that is likely headed for round 3. We're just waiting now on the time slot. Saturday is the most likely option for the Cats and the Lions in round 3. Rosanna?
Thank you, Mitch. Returning home now, an extensive search for a missing Maipalonga man in the state southeast will enter its 5th day tomorrow. 62-year-old Stephen Bailey was last seen on Friday. His car was found abandoned at the Narcat Conservation Park near Keith 2 days later. Police, SES volunteers and Polair will resume operations at first light tomorrow. Authorities say there's no suggestion Mr Bailey has met with foul play. A Port Wakefield couple has spent a gruelling 15 hours in the Lyle McEwen Emergency Department waiting for urgent treatment, which never came.
The opposition claims they're among the majority of patients who aren't being seen in an adequate time frame.
When Bridget Haig's husband fell mysteriously ill, she didn't hesitate to jump in the car and rush him to the emergency department, never expecting a 15-hour wait.
I felt like we were in a third world country.
Alan was suffering stroke-like symptoms and visited his local GP, who referred him to the Balaclava Hospital, which then sent him to the Lyle McEwen. That hospital was alerted before the Port Wakefield couple's arrival and knew of his condition.
You try to give them the benefit of the doubt, thinking that you're going to get seen to.
But they never were, instead switching to the Royal Adelaide, where Alan eventually received treatment.
It wasn't just, a stub toe that led to Alan presenting to the emergency department. This was for a suspected stroke.
The opposition today calling out the state government.
If South Australians are presenting to a hospital in an emergency, less than half of those people are seen within that clinically acceptable time frame. That's just not good enough.
We've seen some weeks that have performed quite well and other weeks that have been more challenged, as is always the case in emergency departments.
The hospital has apologised to Bridget and Alan, stating it doesn't want this to happen to any patient and views it as a learning experience. It also admits that wait times in the emergency department can blow out during busy periods. Though a stroke has now been ruled out of Alan's condition, it's the what if that leaves Bridget unsettled.
He could have died. End of story. He could have just died.
Madison Stanley, 7 News.
A teenager has told 7 News how she saved her mother and her sister from a ferocious house fire at Elizabeth Downs. For the second time this week, a faulty power cord is being blamed for starting the blaze.
A mother and her 2 daughters are lucky to be alive after a blaze ripped through their Elizabeth Downs home.
I'm really thankful that I could be there for my mum and my little sister.
They were taking a nap in the front bedroom of the Kentish Road house when
all of a sudden I could smell smoke, and that instantly made me get up.
Angelica ran and woke them up as the flames took hold.
I went to grab a tea towel and try to put the fire out. Yeah, but I couldn't put it out, so yeah, it was shocking. So my daughter just kept telling me, "Mum, get out, get out."
The family made it outside as fire engulfed the bedroom.
It really ripped into it. It just went up like a match, and it's just unbelievable.
4 MFS crews battled the blaze. Investigators believe a faulty power cord sparked the fire.
Please, people, just, check your cable. If you touch it, if it's hot, don't use it. Throw it out.
All of Amanda's possessions have been destroyed, but she's just grateful her daughter, Angelica, came to the rescue.
I'm just so thankful. I'm honestly so happy that they're here with me right now, because I wouldn't know what to do without them.
This is the second house fire caused by power cords in Adelaide's northern suburbs this week. On Sunday, an overloaded power board in a Broadview house sparked a blaze that caused more than $500,000 damage. Today's fire left a $200,000 damage bill. Unfortunately, the tenant isn't insured. Peter Caldecott, 7 News.
Donald Trump has declared Russia is finally ready to end the war in Ukraine, while Ukraine's president Volodymyr Zelensky is charging back to the negotiating table. In his first address to Congress since his re-election, the US president also launched his own trade war on the world.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Donald Trump back in the deep end of the Washington swamp. The address to Congress, more like a campaign rally. One demonstrating Democrat was drowned out, then kicked out, so the Commander-in-Chief could declare the first 43 days of his comeback the best in US history.
America is back.
And after strong-arming Ukraine and humiliating its president, he says Russia is now ready to end the war.
And have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
In the same breath, President Trump launched his own war on trade, with equal tariffs on every single country that taxes American products.
We have been ripped off for decades by nearly every country on earth.
No word on an Australian exemption, and Canada had to start paying today.
But Donald, you're a very smart guy. This is a very dumb thing to do.
The president insisting it's all part of his revolution of common sense, which will kill woke once and for all in his reborn America.
The most dominant civilization ever to exist on the face of this earth.
This was trademark Trump, lapping up every minute in front of a prime-time TV audience, delivering the longest address to a joint sitting of Congress on record, speaking for more than an hour and 40 minutes.
God bless you and God bless America.
And he insists he's just getting started. In Washington, D.C., Rob Scott, 7 News.
A large portion of this marathon speech was about his vision, including a defence shield across the United States and building up a future powerful military. He reiterated his commitment to taking back the Panama Canal as well as Greenland from Denmark, no matter what. Now, that did feel like fighting words, but as we know, Rosanna, that is Donald Trump's style.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Rob. Now, the Deputy Prime Minister has again defended the AUKUS submarine agreement, dismissing claims it's at risk under the Trump presidency. Today, he joined Premier Peter Malinauskas at Osborne, where construction's now underway on a major training and skills hub.
Breaking ground on South Australia's shipbuilding and submarine future. The
The Premier, joined by Defence Minister Richard Marles at Osborne, where a $480 million dedicated skills and training centre will soon take shape.
This is the day that South Australia's been waiting for.
The facility will prepare workers for the state's involvement in the $368 billion AUKUS agreement. Suggestions President Trump might leave us high and dry hosed down again today.
There is support across the United States system for AUKUS. The Secretary of Defence was very clear about that. The Secretary of State's been very clear about that.
The training centre is based on a similar one in the UK and will simulate a submarine construction yard, combining hands-on training with classroom learning.
Young people coming through this facility to be trained up with the most exquisite of skills to build the most complex machine ever built in human history.
At this stage, the facility is expected to be completed by 2028, and once operational, it will have the capacity to accommodate up to 1,000 students each year. But with more than 4,000 jobs to fill when submarine construction kicks off later this decade, there's still a lot of work ahead to ensure a skilled workforce is ready.
Young people who choose this as a pathway will have a well-paid, secure, high-quality job for the rest of their lives.
Michaela Kamarik, 7 News.
All right, let's check in with Soda on what's coming up in sport.
We've been a bit of talk lately about that Port Adelaide succession plan, of course. Now, Josh Carr is going to take over next year, but will he get his hands on the steering wheel in some form this year? Well, we'll find out from the man himself. At West Lakes, Aki Crow is back running. We'll find out if he'll be ready for round one. And a silent achiever who's eyeing a win in her Adelaide Cup debut. All that and plenty more coming up soon in sport.
Thanks, Soda. Also coming up, a bizarre theft caught on camera at an Adelaide childcare centre.
Also, fewer car parks and 10 k's an hour, the latest on a controversial Glenelg revamp.
We'll cross live to Vatican City for an update on the Pope's health battle.
And Meghan, the homemaker. The royal shares her tips on life, but her critics aren't buying it.
There's been a senseless vandal attack and bizarre theft at a northeastern suburbs childcare centre.
A man was captured on camera destroying a child's play area, and it's left staff and parents devastated.
It is the most heartless of crimes, a vandal trashing a child's play space.
It's really disheartening. It's actually it's disgusting.
After jumping over the front fence, the offender begins to rip up artificial turf while his mate keeps watch on the other side. The man spends several minutes destroying the baby play area at O'Brien's Montessori Childcare Centre.
I actually find it crazy that someone would even think that they would do this. It's horrible, really. Like, it's where children come.
His accomplice is handed a cutting before the man climbs back over and flees just after midnight.
This is our community, and this centre has been a part of the community for a long time.
The cruel crime has left the centre's owners heartbroken.
Taking away from kids, like innocent kids coming in and wanting to play in their yard, you can't explain that to them.
Sort of tried to patch it up straight away, but we to do the proper repairs, obviously it's going to take some time over the weekend.
It's the second time in only 6 months the facility's been struck. The childcare centre says they have a fair idea who targeted them, but because the vision doesn't show the suspect's face clearly, there's not much police can do.
You can go to his property and see the product in his front yard and still not be able to charge him because he could say he purchased it himself.
Mitchell Zariovsky, 7 News.
A male nurse has now been charged over a live stream where he and a colleague allegedly bragged about killing Israeli patients. Ahmad Rashad has been granted bail before he faces court next month. He's charged with using a carriage service to menace as well as drug offences. The female nurse featured in the video was charged last month.
The Pope's medical condition hasn't improved. He remains on a ventilator in a Rome hospital, receiving around-the-clock care. Europe correspondent Ben Downey joins us from the Vatican. And Ben, the Holy Father is stable.
Yeah, good evening. Well, we've just received an update from the Vatican that the Pontiff's had another restful night. Some good news, particularly for the more than 1 billion Catholics around the world praying for his good health. It's been a seesawing 19 days since he was first admitted to Gemelli Hospital with double pneumonia, obviously causing serious breathing difficulties and a variety of other conditions as well. So the news his condition is unchanged over the past 24 hours, well, that's of small relief, but there are still serious, grave concerns for the Holy Father, and that every day his condition doesn't improve, it only adds to the anxiety here and around the world. Rosanna?
All right, thank you for that, Ben. Fewer car spaces and drastically lowered speed limits are proposed in a $40 million overhaul of Glenelg's tourist precinct. Holdfast Bay Council's considering controversial plans to improve pedestrian safety. Options include a 10km/h zone on part of Durham Street and reducing the limit on Jetty Road and Collie Terrace to 30. The concepts would also mean between 29 and 60 fewer parking spaces.
Jail time for an Adelaide model and actor who sexually abused a Year 9 schoolboy. That story's after the break.
Also, a new drama unfolding for the family of controversial Olympian ray gun.
Flares thrown and smoke bombs let off. What sparked this chaos in Parliament?
And when NASA's 2 stranded astronauts are now due to return home. A 39-year-old Adelaide mum has been jailed for sex crimes against a 14-year-old schoolboy. A district court judge told the fitness model her behaviour was breathtakingly brazen.
Meghan Blancada forced to swap her bikinis for prison-issued attire, jailed for more than 5 years for maintaining an unlawful sexual relationship with a schoolboy. He was just 14 years old and in Year 9 when the offending began, and she was 21 years his senior. The abuse was physical and also through messaging. Over 2 years, the pair sent more than 1,000 images and videos to each other. Today, the sentencing judge said it matters not that the victim reciprocated communications. He was a child, you were an adult. Now 39 years old, the court heard Blancada's crime was born from a need to fill an emotional void. She had unresolved issues from her childhood and problems in her marriage, and she knew what she was doing was wrong because she'd searched online for having sex with underage and sexual relationship with 14-year-old. The last thing the judge told Blancada before she was taken into custody is that she's never to have anything to do with her victim ever again. She will be eligible for parole in 2027. Lauren Rose, 7 News.
The brother of controversial Olympic breakdancer Ray Gunn is facing fraud charges. Brendan Gunn is accused of dealing with the proceeds of crime as a company director, accepting money to be converted into cryptocurrency. According to police, he handled cheques totalling $181,000 despite having knowledge he was dealing with victims of a scam. He faces up to 3 years jail if convicted.
In what could be a well-timed boost just before the election, the Albanese government says our economy has turned a corner.
Australia has recorded the strongest GDP growth in years, but for struggling Adelaide households, there's a long way to go.
The figures say the cost of living's easing.
Load of bull.
In the supermarket car park, this shopper's not buying it.
You go in there and buy some groceries, darling, and you'll find out.
Those official figures, economic growth up 0.6% in the December quarter to 1.3% annually, the best result in more than 2 years.
Growth is picking up in the Australian economy, and the Australian economy has turned a corner.
Household spending bouncing 0.4%, Australians buying more furniture, clothes and shoes, and spending more at cafes and restaurants. Agriculture booming. In a parched economy, green shoots.
There are good reasons to be more confident about 2025.
Not according to the opposition.
The truth is Australians continue to face a very tough set of circumstances.
The results from before the Reserve Bank cut interest rates to 4.1% last month.
We've taken our foot a little bit off the brake. We haven't got our foot on the accelerator.
A second cut in April now looking unlikely, but...
I'm starting to think the next Reserve Bank rate cut
could be as early as May.
The biggest unknown, the Trump tariffs' economic thump. Interest rates down, jobs up, wages steady now, growth growing. All reasons to call an election at the weekend. But with Cyclone Alfred bearing down, Anthony Albanese says his mind's on that alone.
On the timing of election.
The eyes have it. Markle, 7 News.
They've called the International Space Station home for the past 9 months, but finally NASA's 2 stuck astronauts will return to Earth. Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams will depart later this month, their replacements arriving next week.
It brings to mind family and all the people on the ground who support us. So, you know, it's been a roller coaster for them, probably a little bit more so than for us. You know, we're here, we have a mission.
The duo had only expected to be gone a week or so when their spacecraft was deemed too unsafe for the journey home.
A session of Parliament has dissolved into chaos in Serbia, complete with smoke bombs and flares. At least 3 politicians were injured, one suffering a stroke. They'd been scheduled to vote on an education law, but opponents interrupted, demanding the Prime Minister's resignation.
A 16-year-old charged over an alleged chilling threat to repeat the Christchurch massacre. That story's next.
Also, King Charles drops in on an aircraft carrier for a surprise visit.
Meantime, Meghan Markle launches a Netflix special, but what's missing from her 8-part series? The critics weigh in.
And pork rolls ahead, the road signs that aren't what they seem. A West Australian teenager has been charged after allegedly threatening to carry out a mass shooting at a Sydney mosque. The 16-year-old boy referenced the hateful attacks that left more than 50 dead in New Zealand, posting, "I'm about to Christchurch 2.0 this joint."
The King has made a symbolic visit to a British warship in the North Sea. In full Navy uniform, he told the crew the world has become increasingly uncertain and that their role has never been more important.
As the Commander-in-Chief of Britain's armed forces, visiting some at sea isn't unprecedented, but with a tense political and military world, the arrival of King Charles on board HMS Prince of Wales felt significant. Hooray! Home! The Royal Navy's aircraft carrier in the North Sea is about to be deployed to the Indo-Pacific, a signal of deterrence to Russia and China. And as the King told its sailors, that mission comes in uncertain times.
Your deployment in the next month comes amidst new challenges in an ever-changing and more unpredictable world.
The King's naval visit is significant not just as a potential sign of improving health, but it also continues his most intense period of royal diplomacy since taking the crown. Visits with the leaders of Canada and Ukraine in successive days may be a precursor to an even bigger arrival.
This is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit.
The King, no doubt conscious of the role he may play in maintaining world order. In London, Joel Dry, 7 News.
Virgin's new CEO is ready to take flight. Here's Amelia Brace with today's Money Talks.
Hello, Virgin Australia has appointed a new CEO. Current Chief Commercial Officer Dave Emerson will replace Jane Herdlicker as pilot of the country's second biggest airline, which today posted record results. Aussies will no longer have access to the Jeep Grand Cherokee when existing stock runs out after the company posted a $9 billion profit hit. And insurance companies extended their declines today as fears mount over the impact of Cyclone Alfred on premiums. That helped the ASX 200 sink to its lowest level this year, dropping 67 points. The Australian dollar also slipped on fears of a global trade war, buying 62.60 US cents. And gold is continuing its momentum as investors flock to the safe haven commodity.
A Sydney Vietnamese cafe is using a little creativity to drum up business. They look like standard road signs and the directions for pork rolls are certainly catching the eye of passing drivers. We're told the Pork Hub is also very creative with its food. 7 News was tipped off after airing this cafe sign resembling a speed camera warning.
Very Quite thoughtful,
Isn't it?
checking your caffeine levels. All right, let's check in with Soder and what's coming up in sport. Josh Carr's, he's got a few extra responsibilities this year.
Well, we know he's going to take the head job next year. Now we're going to find out how much control he's going to have this year. And he backs one of the club's key leaders to return to form in 2025. Shock retirement as Australia bows out of the Champions Trophy in Dubai. And the local hopes, dreaming of a cup to remember. Hello again. Port Adelaide coach-in-waiting Josh Carr insists nothing has changed since the somewhat controversial succession plan was confirmed, with critics asking who's calling the shots at Alberton this year. Carr says he won't be a backseat driver.
It's the same car with just a few added features.
No, nothing changes for me game day. It's it's the same. I think the only thing that's changed for me is I have more involvement in list management and talking to the recruiting team about what it looks like going forward.
Port's incumbent coach hitting back at the club's succession critics that ask who's at the wheel in 2025.
I think it's really clear, with what our roles are, and the players still fully know that Ken's the boss and he's the coach.
Leaving Carr to continue as the club's midfield coach, an engine room missing superstar Zach Butters for the next month and a half.
It's up to everyone just to lift that a little bit more.
And that's exactly what Connor Rosie did in the Powers thumping pre-season win over the Saints. The skipper back to his All-Australian best after a challenging first season in charge.
The injury came and a little bit interrupted, but his contribution as far as his leadership goes, and even in game, he was still playing good football, but I guess for the comparisons of previous years, what everyone looks at, there's a lot of upside for him.
Carr confirmed Asaba Radigalia will miss round one with a knee injury. Fellow defender Ryan Burton will look to prove he's over a groin complaint in Friday's internal trial. Josh Money, 7 News.
The Crows are continuing to take a cautious approach with prize pick Sid Draper. The young mid was a limited participant at training after being managed earlier in the week. He'll push his case for a round one debut in Friday's match simulation. Key defender Mark Keane will be assessed over the next week after suffering a hip strain against the Lions. Still sporting a thumb guard, Max Michaelani took part in the full session. He's on track to face the Saints next Sunday, which is great news. And in breaking news, though, former Crows CEO Stephen Trigg has joined the SA Football Commission. He was elected unopposed to fill the vacancy left by Peter Lindner. Well, Giant star Jesse Hogan's in no mood to joke about the mishap that broke his thumb. On the team bus back from Canberra last week, the Coleman medalist jammed his thumb in the toilet door. Scans later revealed a break. Coach Adam Kingsley wanted to know if alcohol was involved.
Yeah, easy done. Zero alcohol on the bus, so there's none of that funny business. But he was a bit baffled by it, and I actually kind of want the bus to pull up so I can show everyone how it happened, because everyone just thinks I'm an idiot.
Hogan's set to miss at least 2 matches, and Clayton Oliver's putting his demons behind him after a tumultuous year.
I think from both sides, we've both invested in it, and we sort of had to come over our shell a little bit, main track, and be uncomfortable with where we're at, and I think we've done that. And then credit to Melbourne, they've done the same thing to us.
Oliver was put up for trade in the off-season, but an assuring phone call from Melbourne President Brad Green convinced him that his future is with the D's. Well, Steve Smith retired from one-day cricket and let questions about India's advantage sail through to the keeper following Australia's semi-final exit from the Champions Trophy. Defending 2-6-4, the Aussies put down 3 chances, including Virat Kohli on 51. King Kohli went on to make 84 and guided India to a 4-wicket win with 11 balls to spare. The ICC's decision to let India play their games in Dubai caused plenty of controversy.
I'm not buying into it. I think it is what it is. India obviously played some really good cricket here. The surface kind of suits their style.
India will play either New Zealand or South Africa in Sunday's final in, you guessed it, in Dubai. Well, leading SA jockey Rochelle Milnes is plotting an Adelaide Cup debut win on board local hope Silent Sorrente. Touted as the next Jamie Melham, formerly Carr of course, trainers Will Clarkin and Nikki O'Shea have no hesitation putting an apprentice on one of the Cup favourites on Monday.
At Oakbank this morning,
Rising star Michelle Milnes and Silent Sorrente prepare for their first Adelaide Cup.
About as good as you could leading into a race like this.
At 22, the apprentice jockey is coming off a treble at Morphettville last Saturday after claiming back-to-back Port Lincoln Cups.
Yeah, there was a lot of tears and a fair bit of emotion, so it was a very special moment for me.
And on board Silent Sorrente, another special moment awaits on Monday.
It's definitely got the ability to get us there, so being on the sidelines is fun, so I could only imagine what it's going to be like out there.
You'd be worried, putting on an apprentice in a race like that, but she doesn't seem to let the pressure get to her, so I don't think it will on Monday.
The 6-year-old mare's run second in each of its last 2 starts, including the Group 3 Lord Ream Stakes at Morphettville. Her fighting finish giving trainers Will Clarkin and Nikki O'Shea believe she'll handle the 3,200 metres.
Her number one thing is how tough she is. She probably almost outperforms her ability a little bit. She just tries so hard.
Silent Sorrente will be one of the favourites, with a Philip Stokes-trained stayer Deacon not making the trip to SA. The barrier draws on Friday morning. Robbie Cornthwaite, 7 News.
That is our look at sport. Now, tonight, Front Bar is back. Simon Black is going to be joining the boys, followed by an exclusive doco taking us inside the pre-season of the Hollywood Hawks, which will be great with Sam Mitchell. So that's on 7 and 7+. That is our look at sport. And poor Jesse Hogan, the old thumb in the toilet door trick on the eve of the season. Come on,
He hasn't always had the best luck with injuries, Jesse, but that one's pretty special.
Poor bugger.
Yeah, absolutely. Good on you, Soda. Well, Meghan Markle has transformed into a domestic goddess for the launch of her new lifestyle program, With Love, Meghan.
The series, which has just landed on Netflix, is predicted to be a ratings hit, but already her critics are out in force.
At home with Meghan.
My kids will now connect this to coming home from school and smelling sweetness that wafts through the house when you are slow cooking fruit. Oh, Mom's making some preserves again.
Except this isn't actually her home. The Duchess's Netflix special is filmed at a separate Californian farmhouse to the one she shares with husband Harry and their 2 children. The 8-part series features berry picking, beekeeping and cooking. Lots of it.
I find when I'm cooking bacon, my kitchen very immediately becomes full of husband and 3 dogs. My bacon brings all the boys to the yard.
Unlike in previous collaborations with the streamer, she shares no royal grievances here. It's all sugar, no salt. But she does want to correct the record on one thing.
You keep saying Meghan Markle, I'm Sussex now. You have kids and you go, no, I share my name with my children. It just means so much to go, this is our family name.
With a cameo appearance from the Prince.
Thank you for loving me so much and celebrating with me. Cheers, guys.
The series is predicted to be a smash hit for Netflix, even as critics pick it apart.
It's all very beautiful, but it's very privileged.
In Los Angeles, Smiley Hogan, 7 News.
Well, Amelia's back after the break with the Bald Eagles, who've gone viral with their live webcam show.
And temperatures over the long weekend are now looking a touch hotter than first thought. I'll be back with all the details live from Woodside up next.
For Adelaide's latest news and more, tune in to Will Goodings and David Pemberthy on 5AA Breakfast tomorrow morning.
Time for more of the weather now, and Amelia joins us again from Woodside.
And Mills, not only is it incredibly dry, we're expecting gusty winds in the hills tonight too.
Rosie, that's right. Winds of up to 80 k's an hour are expected to develop about the Mount Lofty ranges here overnight and continue into the morning. Also about our southern suburbs as well. The SES issuing a warning in the last 24 hours for us to watch out for heat-stressed trees dropping limbs following the state's hottest summer on record when it comes to those maximum temperatures. In the city today, well, our maximum was 32.5 degrees. Right now, it's sitting around 25 degrees. Across the state today, well, we did see cloud about some southern parts of the state. Top temperatures were warmer than usual in most parts, aside from about the coast, with isolated very light showers about those far southern coastal areas too. Pandana and Point Avoid picked up 0.2 of a millimetre. To the charts, we've got a high pressure system to the south of us to thank for our ongoing fine weather and for those noticeable winds at times today. But the big story, Tropical Cyclone Alfred, currently a Category 2. It's tracking towards Brisbane, expected to hit early Friday morning. Warnings for impacts are in place tonight, though, across southeast Queensland down to Yamba and Ballina in New South Wales. Winds over 100 k's an hour tipped and big surf continuing into tomorrow as well. Back home, well, a different story. Another dry day generally, aside from the odd spot. Light pesky stuff, nothing to write home about near far southern and western coasts. A partly cloudy top of 24 on the way for Port Lincoln tomorrow, becoming windy and up to 28 in Whyalla. Similar conditions in Port Augusta, up to 31 there, 29 the top for Clare and Kadina, 28 in Nuriotpa and Murray Bridge. Winds easing in Victor Harbour, 22, and we're going for a top of 23 in Mount Gambier. And strong winds are forecast across all coastal areas tomorrow, including out on metro waters, where sou'easterlies will reach up to 30 knots about areas south of Brighton in the morning, with seas up to 1.5 metres. Now in the city, down to 17 degrees overnight with a bit of cloud around by morning. Now it should clear during the day though, 29 the forecast top. Taking a look ahead, and we're set to heat up just in time for the long weekend. A sunny 36 on the way for Saturday. That's now the top on Sunday as well. And a hotter day than first thought Monday for the Adelaide Cup, up to 35 degrees then. Now before I go, let's take a look at tonight's Rave Sunshine. Meet Jackie and Shadow, California's famous bald eagle pair. The duo's nesting duties have captivated a global audience through a live webcam since the start of the pandemic. And after years of failed attempts, they welcomed their first 2 hatchlings overnight. Unbeknown to them though, they had millions of viewers watching the special moment live, thanks to the Big Bear Valley Eagle Cam. And if you are looking for something new to binge, well, the parents still have 1 egg left. So here's hoping there are a trio of eaglets to tend to, guys.
Very cute and fluffy. Thank you, Amelia.
Good on you, Amelia. That is all the news now. We will have updates for you throughout the evening.
We will, but from all the Adelaide 17 for now, it's good night.
Good night.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want every minute of every day, including breaking news alerts. Download the 7 News app now.